The Trump train is chugging on, and Sidney Powell has finally released that Kraken. And now Georgia and Michigan are under severe Kraken attack. And so, here's the scoop on Georgia.
Attorney Sidney Powell filed a federal lawsuit late Wednesday alleging massive election fraud in Georgia. It cites multiple violations of the Constitution and Georgia's state laws in the 2020 general election.
The civil action alleges a plot of illegally and fraudulently manipulating the vote count to make certain the election of Joe Biden as President of the United States. Attorney Sidney Powell filed a 104-page complaint in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Georgia, Atlanta Division. The suit claims to have incontrovertible evidence that at least 96,600 absentee ballots were requested and counted but were never recorded as being returned to county election boards by the voter, stating thus, at a minimum, 96,600 votes must be disregarded. According to the suit, fraud was also allegedly executed by many means. It states the most troubling, however, to be election manipulation by software created and run by domestic and foreign actors for that very purpose. The massive fraud begins with the election software and hardware from Dominion Voting Systems. The complaint cites a former electronic intelligence analyst and a former U.S. military intelligence expert. Both allege that the Dominion system and software were certainly compromised by rogue actors such as Iran and China, who say this took place during the 2020 election.
As if the courts in Georgia don't have enough to chew on, Lynn Wood of Trump's attorneys has now managed to get one of his suits to be seen by a court in Georgia.
Attorney Lynn Wood joined the Trump campaign's legal efforts against alleged election fraud soon after the election, and he's been taking on Georgia. Wood announced the granted appeal over Twitter, saying, "Thanksgiving Eve news. 11th Circuit granted my emergency motion for expedited review of a lawsuit challenging validity of Georgia election procedure. We the people delivered a historic landslide win for Donald Trump in Georgia and nationally. We the people will not allow it to be stolen."
Like Pennsylvania before, now Georgia's back in play. And that's going to put Trump in striking distance. Now, something very important to remember is that there's a lot of people out there fretting because they're thinking that, well, these state legislatures, these courts, they're not going to turn the election over in these states and give it to Trump. And I agree, that's probably true. But keep in mind, that doesn't have to happen. All they have to do is not certify the vote. If Biden doesn't get these votes in 3 of these states, he doesn't reach 270 electoral votes. That means the whole thing goes into the House of Representatives, where Trump will win. And so I think people are looking at it all wrong. Something else in the news today that I saw someone fretting over was, well, Trump, he's pardoned Michael Flynn. That means he sees the handwriting on the wall. He believes he's going to lose. But there's nothing to that narrative. The reason for that is he was going to pardon Flynn whether he won or whether he lost anyway. And he just wanted to do it after the election. Why is he going to wait 4 years if he gets reelected and let Flynn rot in jail forever? He wasn't ever going to do that. And so I wouldn't let that bother me. All right, so back on the election news, we see that Georgia and Pennsylvania now have a big goings-on in the courts that could turn these states or at least decertify them. And now Wisconsin is the next thing we're going to look at. And here's the scoop.
And in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, some neighborhoods reported unusually high election turnout. We break down some of the numbers here.
About 13,000 fewer people voted in Milwaukee, Wisconsin this election compared to 2016. But in several neighborhoods, the number of ballots cast increased dramatically. Based on demographic data from 2010, which is the most recent available, in City Ward 235, over 105% of the eligible voting population cast ballots. It recorded 1,768 votes for Biden and 339 for Trump, but only 1,680 people are eligible to vote there. There are over 2,000 registered voters there, but that doesn't necessarily reflect how many people actually live there. Oftentimes, people don't cancel their registrations when they move. The county spokesman said voter turnout could exceed 100% if there are only a couple of households and a resident turns 18 before Election Day. But that wouldn't apply to this ward, which has a larger population. 4 other wards had a turnout of between 92 to 97%. Altogether, they represent nearly 8,000 votes. Almost 6,000 of them went to Biden. No city ward got above 90% in 2016, and 4 other wards reported massive vote increases. Up to 44% more people voted this year. The increases stand out because the city's overall vote count dropped by nearly 4% compared to 2016. President Trump is contesting the results in Wisconsin, which show Joe Biden ahead by about 20,000 votes. The state's certification deadline is next Tuesday.
Alrighty, so many votes and so few people. How do 105% of the people vote anywhere? How could any court in any planet ever say that it would be possible for 1 million people to vote when only 800,000 exist? So this is going to be some pretty clear, plain evidence that's going to be very hard to refute. So I would say that in Wisconsin, the Democrats really have some problems on their hands, and they've got some splaining to do. Okay, so Michigan also is under fire from Sidney Powell and her Kraken, and they're going to now have to face the music. Dominion has 100 pages of evidence and witnesses and all kinds of things in these reports that or 100 mentions, and they're really going to have an awful time trying to prove that Dominion is a good faith actor. It's pretty obvious that they're not. And hopefully, if nothing else, that something will have to be done about the Dominion voting system. So the vote in Michigan was pretty heavily, or is right now heavily in favor of Biden by 150,000 votes, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of votes that are in question. And so there may be enough here also to decertify that vote in Michigan.
And Sidney Powell also filed a lawsuit in Michigan on Wednesday. It seeks to set aside the results of Michigan's election.
Attorney Sidney Powell's Michigan lawsuit repeats the claims of massive election fraud in the state of Michigan as in Georgia, and that it helped make Joe Biden's lead possible in the state. It claims that Michigan state election officials directed the misconduct. It cites eyewitness and expert testimony alleging there were enough ballots identified to overturn and reverse the election results. It also says the state's election was so riddled with fraud that the results can't be relied on. Michigan certified its results on Monday, but Trump lawyer Jenna Ellis said the certification by state officials is only a procedural step. There are 2 pending lawsuits in Michigan.
A lot of people are fretting over, oh, well, it's already certified, it's a done deal. Well, it's not any more of a done deal than it was when ABC certified it or CNN certified it. These people don't certify elections, nor do they put presidents in office. The state legislatures can step in on any of these, and they are the ones with the constitutional authority to put a president in office. And so if those state legislatures decide to man up and say, okay, we can't in good faith give these states to Donald Trump, but what we can do is say that these elections were so fraudulent and so corrupt that they're invalid altogether. And all of a sudden, Biden's 306 votes goes to 286 once you lose Pennsylvania, goes to 270 exactly once you lose Georgia, and if he loses anything else, even poor little Nevada, he can't lose anything else. He would no longer have 270 votes. He would no longer be able to win the Electoral College, and Trump would probably win in the House of Representatives. Well, let's take a look at I give you a teaser about Nevada yesterday, and here's what it looks like in Nevada.
Yeah, for the first time in this whole tragic story of the 2020 presidential election, a state court has granted Republicans in Nevada and the Trump campaign the ability to present their case of widespread illegal balloting and to just depose up to 15 people who know what went down in Clark County in the state of Nevada. So this is big news. You know, a lot of people in the national media have said, you know, if you have evidence of voter fraud, show it. Well, we have thousands and thousands of examples of real people and real life instances of voter illegality. And I just think it's a great step that we're going to have a chance to present it in court. If we get a fair hearing, I believe the results in Nevada should be switched.
Okay, so big tech, specifically Twitter, is quite mad at Sidney Powell now, and they've blocked her account. And they've also blocked the account of the Pennsylvania senator who called the meeting or the Senate hearing in Pennsylvania. And this just seems like more obstruction and more censoring by Twitter. Twitter needs to be abandoned altogether and probably just put in the trash heap of history, because clearly that fellow that's running that is one bleeding heart liberal that we don't need. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the election, the news for Trump. The Trump train is chugging along, and so you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you later.